Chapter viewers, welcome to this week's edition of the JCTR Corner with me, Annette Mlenga. Today we're looking at the insights of the JCTR August 2020 BNNB. In the studio today, I'm joined by Ms. Mchimba Sarah Siamachoka from JCTR. Mchimba is Acting Program Manager in the Social and Economic Development Program. Mchimba, welcome to the program. I'm happy to have you once again.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Okay, Mchimba, I'm so excited because I want to know what's happening as far as the BNNB is concerned. Maybe before we touch the basic needs and nutrition basket, can you tell us a bit more about your program? What is said all about? What is involved in your program?
Thank you so much for that question. So the Jesuit Center for Theological Reflection is made up of two core units. This is aside the other programs that we have. And these are, they are general to different institutions, finance, and the like. So the program that I'm coming from is social and economic development. So within the program, what we do, or what we generally do, is just unpack social and economic issues that are affecting the lives of people. You know, poverty, for example, is something that is multidimensional, and there are different elements that will contribute to poverty. For a nation, poverty for individuals. So in the program, we are tracking the cost of living through the BNNB, but the other works that we do also border on public financial management, where we are looking at the issue of debt. That remains very topical, and debt should concern you and me. It's like in Congole.
Yeah.
So those are some of the issues that we look at within my program.
Coming down to the issue of projects and the like, what types of programs do you relate to as an individual in your program?
Okay, you know, the interesting thing about social and economic issues, they cut across. So one person could be positioned, for example, in the element of debt, but poverty will affect that element, cost of living will affect that element. So for me, I look at issues to do with the cost of living. That's why I'm here today. I also look at issues to do with public financial management. But then another area, or focus area of mine, has got to do with the well-being of children. So we are currently running two projects where we are trying to see the rights of children being enhanced. And that is enhanced through different government instruments, such as the investment that government is making towards children's rights. This could be to the education sector, to the health sector. But then we are also looking at the child-sensitive social protection component as an institution, and I do relate to those issues.
Okay, that's great, Mchimba. So let's go down to the BNNB, the Basic Needs and Nutrition Basket. So for the month of August, how would you compare the prices in terms of the cost of living for the July and the August BNNB?
Okay, so from our findings on the ground, what we noticed is that the cost of the basket, the total cost of the basket went down by about 26 kwacha. And before I actually look at the items themselves, I think it's just important for us to always look at the basket as a bare minimum. What we are saying is a family of 5 would need this amount to survive in Lusaka. So where a family may be more in number, if they are 10, definitely that cost is higher. If they are less, perhaps maybe then they do have a lesser burden than other households would have. So when we looked at the basket items themselves, we noted that food items such as fruits recorded a slight decline. We noted roller mealie meal, and just on roller mealie meal, I think it's something that has been going down month on month, possibly for the last 4 months. We also noted the price of cassava flour that went down, and I think one other key item was the price of beans. That also noted just some reductions. And on the other hand, we also noted certain prices going up. So the two particular items that we observed, or that were of interest to the center, is firstly the price of carpenter. That actually went up from about 188 kwacha to about 300 kwacha. 300,000, 300 kwacha, sorry. I think I'm thinking of the old currency. To about 300 kwacha, so that was over 100 kwacha increment to the price of carpenter. And then we also noted that the price of vegetables had also gone up slightly. So those are just some of the highlights from the August basket.
According to your findings, would you maybe give us maybe some of the reasons why you think the prices, other items were up, then others are just going down? What could be attributed to that?
Okay, so when we look at the basket, I think as a center, what we've tried to unpack is the 3 elements that can affect the basket. Of course, we know the issue of seasonality. will come into play. And by seasonality, definitely, when it's harvest season, you will notice that prices are a bit lower because there's a lot of supply that is around. But when prices begin to move away from the harvest period itself, you notice that they tend to go upwards because it's like too many people chasing too few goods. So because of that demand and supply element, if we look at it from the economic perspective, but pretty much in a layman's language, it's just too many people chasing too few goods. That tends to cause the price of something to go up. It's like me and Annette are vying for something. So when the owner says, oh, I have this and they both want it, if I increase the price, let me see who will get it. That's normally what comes into play. But then beyond that, we also look at the issue of accessibility. Sometimes when items are not in the market, it means that they're scarce. And because there are any players that are within the market can actually manipulate that. So from the August basket, I think what we can say is that for vegetables, we are beginning to move away from the harvest season. Largely in Zambia, our main harvest season is between April and June. So the further away we move from that harvest season, as we are waiting for the rains to come, definitely you will find items are very hard to find. And because they are hard to find, I mean, if a farmer is traveling from Chongwe to come to Lusaka to sell their produce, they will definitely factor in the price of fuel and all those other elements. And I think it's a similar case that we noted with the carpenter, which had noted a decreased supply.
Okay, well, viewers, you're tuned into the JCTR corner, and today we're looking at the JCTR August 2020 BNNB. And in the studio, I'm joined by Ms. Mchimba Serasia Machoka from JCTR. Now, Mchimba, my other concern is, what are the issues that you can bring out in as far as the BNNB or the cost of living is concerned in Zambia?
So the cost of living will always, it becomes an issue when people cannot afford it. I think that is the starting point. So even as a center, when we are saying the cost of living is high, for example, if I went to government to say this is the cost of living, it's this high, the question comes into play, who is the cost of living high for? The cost of living, just outside what we are looking at right now, could be 20,000 kwacha, but if people can afford it, then it's not a problem. So the challenge with the high cost of living is that people are unable to afford that cost of living. And this evidence that we've generated over time has been noted to say there's a mismatch that exists between the actual cost of living and the incomes that people are getting. And this is information that is also sitting in the hands of government. You know, we do conduct a survey on the side known as the satellite home survey, where we are going to the households to ask the question of, how are you able to survive? What are your incomes and the likes? And from some of our preliminary findings, what we notice is that you'll find the incomes or the average income of people may be about 1,900 kwacha, even in high-density areas of Lusaka. So when you look at that amount and you compare, say, 2,000 kwacha against 7,000 kwacha, I think that tells a story on its own. So those are some of the challenges that we've noted, and it's also just important to realize that we are in a pandemic where livelihoods have actually been shaken, livelihoods have been disrupted. So when people have those disruptions to their livelihoods, it becomes more difficult for them to access basic necessities.
Going by explanation, Mchimba, how does the BNNB affect the category of people who are deemed to be poor, vulnerable, and marginalized in our society? I know you're bringing the concept of people having an income of about 1,900 against the basket, which is way above 7,000. What explanation can you give to this category of people?
Okay, so the explanation that I can give using the BNNB itself is for us as a center, we are advocating for improved livelihoods for individuals. So the selection of the items, I don't know how familiar you are with the basket, but when you look at the items on the basket, it has two components. Maybe that should be a starting point. It's got the food items and the non-food items. So these items are noted as basic essentials because that is what they are, really what a family would need on a day-to-day basis. This could be the meals, it could be washing soap, it could be lotion. I mean, those are essentials that people need on a day-to-day basis.
The daily essentials of life, the necessities.
Exactly. So when we look at the food component, the items that were selected in the basket, or the criteria rather, entails that these items are accessible, they're affordable for people, but they also have a nutritional value. So even when the basket is high, what we are trying to do, even for the households, is just to advocate that these food items are incorporated into their daily diets. It may not be that people do not have incomes to afford, but again, what we are trying to promote or trying to enhance is the nutritional outcomes. When you consume carbohydrates such as rice, roller milli meal, and remember there we're emphasizing roller milli meal because it's got a higher nutritional value as compared to breakfast milli meal. So those are just some of the dynamics in terms of what the basket constitutes. And what we're advocating for, even for household, is that we are presenting options to afford nutrition. What we would like to see is someone picking up the basket to say, I can go and shop for this here, there, there, there. And through purchasing those items and incorporating them into the diets, I'm keeping my household food secure and also maintaining nutritional standards within a home.
Okay, I love the way you're bringing out issues and the way you're explaining everything, Muchimba. My other question would be, what exactly do you put on the basket for someone to say, okay, I'm going to pick this particular item and I'm going to find it there? Do you really put where exactly to find what particular item and how much that item is costing in which particular, let me say, supermarket, town, or, yeah, in those lines?
Okay, so what we are placing on the basket, these are average costs. But of course, we do go to specific areas. For instance, in Lusaka, we conduct this survey in about 7 markets. So our basket will list the markets where we have gotten the data from. When we collected the data, we look at what the exchange rate was pertaining at that particular point in time. And then the total basket itself will actually be describing, even in quantity, what a family of 5 would require for the period of a month. For example, vegetables. The cost that will reflect is the cost per kg, but we will also reflect the cost for 40 kilograms. Because when we look at the nutritional content, the calories that a family would need, and of course, you know, in a family, there's a father, mother, children, it could be guardians, but there are older people and younger people who actually have different nutritional requirements. So we actually highlight that on our basket. That's why this basket can be a tool, even for an everyday person, to say, oh, this item is pertaining at this price here. Perhaps maybe this item is cheaper in one other place, but it gives you an idea, even in terms of planning on what to prioritize, rather, when you have that income of yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Muchimba, for that wonderful explanation. And I want to pose another question, but for now, I would like us to have a breather. Let's just go for a short break, and then we'll continue on the other side. Well, viewers, do join us shortly. We'll be back after the break.
As frontliners in the battlefield, we choose to rise above COVID-19. Yes, we choose to fight and to rise above discrimination and not to succumb to fear. We are now alert, and together as one, we are ready to raise our strides of hope. Death might be knocking at the front door, but no mountain is too high, no river too wide, no storm too fierce. Our pain will strengthen us. Fear will drive our faith. Tiende pamozi na mtima umozi. Atwende antomwe amoyo omwe. I stayed at work for you. Stay at home for me and be safe. Be that change.
Please do your best to stay at home. If you must leave your home, please remember to mask up. Keep social distancing of at least 1 meter and wash your hands often with soap and running water or any alcohol-based hand sanitizer.
Thanks to you viewers for staying with us, and welcome back to the JCTR Corner. Mchimba, welcome back to the program.
Thank you so much.
As JCTR, I know that you undertake a lot of surveys and data collection. What would you say is the impact of COVID-19 on the standards of living among the Zambian people, and how can the BNNB assist this particular group of people in our society?
Okay, so the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, and I think we did touch on this a little bit before we went on break, is really the fact that COVID-19 is a health crisis before anything else. So I'm sure you've observed even over the last few months, different measures have needed to be taken by different countries, not just Zambia, but this is something affecting the world. So we have to social distance, we have to stay at home, we have to work remotely. But then what it really tells us for an everyday Zambian, if my business requires me to be in the street, for example, every day trying to sell my products and the likes, if I'm asked to stay home, it means I don't have that income. And also when my clients are unable to move, it becomes a bit challenging. So this pandemic really has exposed different issues in society. I think I would like to give an example, and this is something that we did observe when we went into the markets. So when we visit the marketeers actually that provide us with this information, they will tell you to say, oh, my business transactions have really gone down since the pandemic began. So what does that mean for that particular person's household? It means they don't have access to that money that they used to. Their livelihood is disrupted. And you see, even before the pandemic, for someone who is trading in that manner, you're only receiving money on a day-to-day basis. It's pretty much hand to mouth on a daily basis. So even with the coming in of the pandemic, I think some of the impacts have been quite devastating. But nonetheless, it's also important for us to acknowledge that different opportunities have actually come out from the COVID-19 pandemic. You know, we have farmers, for instance, who are growing cassava. Cassava is an item on our basket. It's very nutritious, but it also has different uses. And some of these uses have been seen even through the COVID-19 pandemic. So cassava is used to make ethanol. Ethanol is used in the production of hand sanitizers. So for somebody who is in that business, that is an opportunity that has arisen because of COVID-19. And for other people who have embraced technology, for example, because of the pandemic and people are staying at home, if they have businesses that are running online, they're able to thrive because they've adapted to that. So really, to answer your question, I think I can say it's been multifaceted in the sense that the COVID-19 pandemic will manifest itself in different forms. And it's been very different for various sectors in the country. And if you can just allow me to give you one more example, I think just to really contextualize this, I would like to focus on the tourism sector itself. You know, generally as a country, tourism is one activity that we've ventured in. We have a vast number of resources in the country. We have the Victoria Falls. All those are examples. So the amount of foreign exchange that would be coming in when different people visit the country would be going towards our GDP, our gross domestic product as a country. But with the coming in of COVID, we saw the issue of travel restrictions. People cannot come into the country. What does that mean for that sector? What does that mean for the hospitality industry, the hotels, the lodges that have actually had business because people have come into the country? So really, I think while the COVID-19 pandemic may have devastating impacts, it's very important for us to take this as an introspection. Speaking to the tourism sector, is it time that we said we need our local people to actually enjoy what is in the country? Can we give them favorable rates? So those are all the different dynamics that would come on board. There really isn't one size fits all. It can't be one answer to this particular problem, but different solutions will need to be adapted.
Okay, thank you so much, Muchimba. Now, bearing in mind the high cost of living, what interventions can be employed to ensure that the poor households are protected from the poverty and probably starvation that is currently happening in our nation?
Okay, so firstly and foremost, I think for the poor households, mostly the poor, the vulnerable in society, we need to identify where these people are located. Where are they housed within the economy of the country? So we have key sectors that can actually tell us there are people who will be affected if these sectors are not thriving well. Firstly, I would like to speak to the social protection sector itself.
Maybe as you explain that point, you could just tie it to the 2021 national budget. I know that as JCTR, I do submit what you would like to see in the forthcoming budget. So as you explain maybe what interventions can be made, what would you like to see in the 2021 national budget?
Okay, I think that one would be, would really to see the prioritization of the needs of the vulnerable and the poor. And this can be done through instruments such as the budget. Remember, or just to take us back a little bit, we are trying to strive to become a prosperous middle-income country by the year 2030. So that is our vision 2030, the long-term goal that government would
Zambia
like
has,
to
yes.
see for the country, and even individuals would like to see this for ourselves. But that vision itself is operationalized by these long-term plans. These could be our development plans. But again, when you unpack the development plans, they are fed by budgets. So these annual budgets are actually very important. And like you did mention, as JCTR, this is a process that we've contributed towards. And beyond that, we've also tried to sensitize the communities on their right to participate, because there are so many ways that they can participate. But just to get back to the conversation itself, for the poor and vulnerable households, we identified the sector such as social protection. And this is where we have the famous social cash transfer. So that is a safety net that is provided for people who do not have livelihoods to sustain them. When you look at the criteria for selection, it's normally the aged, the disabled, people who cannot take care of themselves. They're not able-bodied to work, so they need that support. And when you look at the family structure, you will find it is the aged who are actually taking care of the younger generation. So through that sector, if we increase allocations towards the social protection sector, it means we are actually covering and protecting more people. So of course, through the 2021 national budget, what we would like to see as an institution is just ring fencing of that sector. By ring fencing, I mean the funds that have been allocated in previous years should not be reduced. You know, it is a tough time even for government that has lost revenue, but what we would like to see is that there are no reductions towards a key sector like social protection. But what we would really, really like to see is an increased allocation to ensure that we are capturing more people. And why are we focusing on more people? Poverty itself is a life cycle. Today I may be well to do, tomorrow I may be in the poverty trap. So with the pandemic coming on board, there are people who were probably well off before the pandemic happened, but they've fallen into a trap. So definitely we need to cater for that segment of society. And beyond that, we have other key sectors such as agriculture. This is where a lot of rural populations are actually based. They are farming. So if we ensure that we are providing people with inputs that are affordable, especially in a trying time like this, I think it would be very pertinent that some of those issues are considered in the 2021 national budget.
Okay. Mchimba, my other question would be going back to the basket and what you just released. Do you, at any point or in your statements, provide any recommendations to the government what should be done in as far as the cost of living is concerned?
Okay, so for the August basket, what we actually did advocate for was twofold. Remember, government has a mandate to create an environment that is enabling. There are different actors. So if I can unpack it, there are different actors within an economy. We have the government, we have the private sector, we have civil society, faith-based actors like ourselves, who are non-state actors, but we also have citizens. So while government has the mandate to create that enabling environment, we also each have a role to play. So with the August basket, for example, towards the households, what we are saying is, can we diversify our diets even within this COVID-19 pandemic? And just to take you back, like you mentioned, we did note price declines in the cost of roller milli meal, cassava flour, pounded groundnuts, fruits. So those are just examples that households can actually undertake to say, instead of opting for maybe T-bone, let me incorporate soya pieces into my daily diet because it's nutritious for me. Instead of consuming breakfast milli meal, let me incorporate roller milli meal, which is cheaper, more affordable, and has got a higher nutritional content. So for the households, really that mandate to go beyond what we are doing is very important. For government, I think with the August statement, we did highlight the need to increase allocations to the social protection sectors. And I know government recently did announce that that is what they intend to do. So it's something that we are going to follow through closely, even as we continue to engage with the budget process.
Okay, going forward, Muchimba, I know I want to give you one last question. Just going forward, what recommendations would you give to the government in terms of taking into consideration the impact of COVID-19? And maybe if you have any last words for the viewers out there, you can just speak your mind out.
Okay, I think to government specifically, as a civil society organization, what we will continue advocating for definitely is the prioritization or the response to the COVID-19 pandemic should take into account that the budget is one way that we can actually improve people's livelihoods. This is by creating that enabling environment. So definitely that is what we would like to see in terms of government intervention. And just to speak on that a little bit, you know, through the Bank of Zambia, I know certain instruments have been announced. For instance, the monetary policy rate was reduced from about 9.25% to 8%. What this means for someone who does not understand what those numbers are telling us is that government is trying to improve liquidity in the economy. If, Annette, you and I today are able to access, this could be financial support even from institutions such as banks at low costs, then we are able to thrive in our businesses. We are not spending so much to pay back, because that is where some of the challenges have been. And I think this has been one of the cries of the private sector. If we are going to encourage investments, we need to create an enabling environment for people to actually participate. And I think this is one core that we've been advocating for, even as civil society to government. And even while I'm on that, you know, it's very difficult when you see the dollar trading at about 20 kwacha. It really tells you something to say the COVID-19 pandemic really has shaken a lot of things. I think it's about time that we prioritized growing our economy from within. And by saying growing our economy from within, let it be a point where people do not need to look outside the country just to buy certain products. Can we have them grown within? And even on that point, you know, with the COVID-19 pandemic, some multinationals have closed their shops. They've gone back to their countries. What does that mean? Employment is being lost. But if businesses are Zambian owned, it means that these people are not going anywhere. This is our country, and we are going to stay within that space. So definitely there is need to continue the diversification agenda from government. Can we tap into the resources that are present in the country? Northwestern Province has got pineapples. Can we look at value addition? The Western Province has got rice, has got the best cashew nuts in the world. Can we look at exporting those products, even not just in their raw form, but once we have added value to them, to just contribute to the basket of the country? And definitely to the households through the BNNB, I think one important thing that we're advocating for is just improved nutritional outcomes for everyone. And I think you would ask me, or maybe you wouldn't, why is nutrition important? For us to be an active citizen, to be full of life, you know, we need to eat the right things, take on these habits that actually are enhancing our potential. So definitely nutrition has got a bearing on the economy of the country, because we are the ones who are running the economy. It is the activities that we undertake every day that contribute to the basket of the economy.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Muchimba. Unfortunately, you have to come to the end of the show. I would like to say thank you so much for making an appearance on the JCTR Corner. And I know I'll call you back soon for us to have another discussion on another topic, probably away from the JCTR BNNB. To our viewers out there, I would like to say thank you so much for staying tuned with us. This has been the JCTR Corner with me, Annette Mlenga. Until next time, it's goodbye for now.